Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our evidence-based practice network. I have 2:59, so we'll give 1 minute and then we'll get going. All right, I have 3 o'clock. Welcome to our second evidence-based practice network webinar. We're excited today that you guys have joined us, especially as you're looking toward the end of this year and going into the winter break. Today is going to focus on practices that can be easily implemented now, or you can plan for it when you get back. So let's skip to the next slide and I'll tell you a little bit about who we are. Today is Help Students Soar in 2024, but this is presented by the Academic Alliance of South Carolina, whose mission is to research and disseminate the evidence-based practices within an MTSS framework related to academics, reading, writing, and math. So we're a new technical assistance agency that's sponsored by the State Department of Education Office of Special Education Services. And we're really working this year to disseminate some universal supports to schools and districts in South Carolina. And the next slide shows who we are. So our team is led by Dr. Mitchell as the senior advisor on the project, and Dr. Susan Thomas, who is our lead facilitative coach. We're responsible for getting the grant through OSIS for the Academic Alliance. And I am Deanna Parrish, who is the program director. The Academic Alliance is a project that is housed in the University of South Carolina College of Education. So today we're going to focus on 2 high leverage practices for your toolbox, and the numbers refer to those high leverage practices. If you're familiar with the high leverage practices, there are 4 components to the high leverage practices, and within those are individual practices. So total, there are 22 practices in the areas of collaboration, assessment, social, emotional, and behavioral, and instructional. These high leverage practices are in the instructional area, and high leverage practice 18 is using strategies to promote active student engagement, and 22 provide positive and corrective feedback to guide students' learning and behavior. When we send out this PowerPoint at the end, the active link at the bottom will take you to the resource for all high leverage practices. And I just want to note that high leverage practices are practices that can be used for any students across any content at any grade level. So we're excited today to welcome some folks from Lancaster County School District. We have Lindsay Ann Edmondson and Graham Thomas, a special ed teacher and a administrator working with kids in the schools. I'll let them take over and talk a little bit more about themselves, but we're very thankful to have practitioners in the field talk about how they're using the high leverage practices with students that they work with. Graham, Lindsay, Leanne, thank you.
Miss Edmondson, if you want to go first, you can, you're more important, so.
Okay, well, I don't know about that, but I'll be glad to go first. My name's Leanne Edmondson. I am one of the special education resource teachers at in Lancaster County School District. And I have kindergarten, first, second, and some of the 3rd graders who come to me throughout the day for reading, writing, and math. And using the specialized instruction, some of the strategies I use to help my students include very specific and immediate feedback for my students. These are students who need to hear like right away some things that they're doing that are either spot on and exactly what we're looking for, or we need to stop them right at that second whenever they're making a mistake so that we can correct them and not continue to move on and make those mistakes that they are making. Some things that work for our students that we have found are again doing that specific immediate feedback and saying, yes, that's exactly right, that's exactly what we're looking for. And then reassuring what it is that you were excited that the student did. For example, we work a lot, especially with my second and third graders, on words that have 4 and 5 letters in those words, like blends and digraphs. So yes, that's exactly right. SH are 2 letters that make 1 sound. So how many letters do we hear in the word wish? And we'll count out those letters using even just counter chips that you use in math, or little tokens that come with some of our instructional pieces, and pushing the sounds up when we say the sounds in the word wish, for example. So we do the sounds, and then we count how many sounds. We do the letters, we count how many letters, and then we talk about why there may be more letters than there are sounds. Some of the other things that work really well with our students is skywriting. So if, again, taking the word wish, we put our fingers in the air and write the sounds that we hear, and then we go back and do the letters so that they're hearing both the sounds and the letters as they do the word. Palm writing is another example that we use, just writing those sounds we hear in our words. And then of course, tapping sounds. So if it is the word wish, we can tap it on our desk. What's the word? Wish. Yeah, that's great. Now you try it. And then making sure that the student is following on along with us, and making sure that they are understanding and are engaged with us. It's good to go around the classroom and check on them as we're going through some of the words in our instruction, just to make sure that they're right on task and keeping them engaged. Magnetic letters is something else that are great to use. And then there's so many, like I'm going through my head thinking of so many. These are the ones that are most commonly used. But but also with our instruction, where we tap out the sounds on our arms. So we start at our shoulder, and if the student is right-handed, they would take their right hand and go over to their left shoulder and tap out the sounds for the word. So the beginning, elbow's the middle, the wrist is the end. And for the SH, so for those digraphs, because those are 2 letters, we would tap, tap to show, okay, those are 2 letters that make that one sound, and they do come at the end. So W-I-S-H, or W-ish. Those are some of the fun things that really keep them engaged. As soon as I get my arm up, they all know what's getting ready to happen. So those are the most important things. We do lots of different activities, and I look for, like, I'm a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of person. So that just makes me realize, okay, who's really listening, who's engaged, and doing, even like giving me a high five in the air. Those are some other things to check, just to do a quick check around to make sure everybody's with me and following along and understanding.
Perfect. And I know we threw a lot at you there. So we're going to go through some of that stuff with you guys, of those specifics. But it's always nice to hear from somebody who's doing it in the classroom. I'm Graham Thomas. I'm one of the assistant principals. I am the assistant principal here with Miss Edmondson, and I'm the special needs administrator, if any of you have those in your schools, which I guess just means that I get to go to extra training and sit in most of the fun IEP meetings. But Miss Edmondson is great. She was actually our teacher of the year last year. I've been very fortunate that I'm her evaluator this year, and she's pretty awesome. So she does have a lot of great stuff to offer as far as that goes. So I did just want to, for us to kind of get into it here about, again, the opportunities to respond, and again, going into what we're here to talk about today, but talking about like increasing students' fluency with, like what Miss Edmondson was talking about, allowing students to become more fluent with, whatever that skill that you're working on, right? Like, I know that a lot of times we focus on reading, but it could be those math facts that we're talking about. So giving them lots of opportunities to practice or respond really helps with the fluency. And again, it keeps them engaged. I know one of the things that we talk about, administrators at least, is like, how do you know if kids are engaged? And the only real way to know is if they're responding to something, right? Some people are like, if they're looking, if they're nodding, if they're doing, there's no other real way to know that a kid's engaged, unless they're giving you some kind of verbal, nonverbal, whether they're writing something down on a piece of paper, but some kind of responding to what you're doing. So those are some reasons why it's great for us. All right. Here's what the research says. It says giving students frequent opportunities to answer questions and providing feedback is good for them, and using teacher-directed opportunities to respond is an effective strategy to increase academic achievement and appropriate behavior in the classroom. I would say behavior is one of those things where we are fortunate at our school that we don't have tons of behavior, but I think Miss Edmondson would probably argue with me to say that we don't have any. There's definitely some. I believe you see a few students only for behavior, correct, Miss Edmondson?
A couple, yeah.
Yes, you see, and that's something where, she is trying to teach some kids how to read, and then we're asking her to do some behavior stuff with some other kids. So it's definitely something that I know all teachers have to deal with. And again, this is something that will help you with that classroom management piece.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So one of the things that Miss Edmondson went over was talking about the uses of choral response when we're talking about this, which is, again, it's a really good thing. Elementary school teachers, I'm an old middle school teacher. I say old, I'm not that old, but I taught middle school for 10 years, and I think elementary school teachers coming here and seeing that do this really well, where they get the whole class to respond back to them if they have some kind of question. And again, it's a great way when you're introducing new content for an opportunity for you to model, and also for the kids to practice. I will say that one hard thing for me is hearing, if somebody's saying something wrong, and making sure that after you say it, maybe an example is, this word is bat. And you ask the whole class, everybody say, what's this word? Bat. And if you hear somebody say fat or mat, right, then that's when you jump in and go, what was this word again? It was bat. You just want to make sure that they're practicing it correctly, especially for our students, with disabilities, where we know it's difficult for them to hang on to those things, and we need them to practice as much as possible. Again, there's tons of different ways. I saw a teacher do this last week for a nonverbal way. She had, and I'm sure some people on the screen will know this, but give me a snake if it's this answer, give me a shark if it's this answer, and they had to do one or the other. So the kids were doing that. They had to think about it. Miss Edmondson mentioned thumbs up and thumbs down as a way to do it. I was a big whiteboard person. Again, old middle school teacher here. So you get all the kids to write their responses. I'm sure you've seen those before. But again, just some way where the students can be involved in responding, where we're not calling on one and then nobody else has to think about what an answer might be. And again,
And also,
I think,
Mr. Thomas, can I jump in real quick on that?
jump in.
Also mixing it up, so that they don't always think it's going to be the snake or the shark or the thumbs up or thumbs down. That's something that's always good to kind of keep in mind. And then I'm sure most people on the screen have heard this, but like for seasons, of course, I'm trying to think of one right now, but like for seasons, I'll give a word and they give a word back. lack of a better example, like popcorn. If I say pop, you say corn, pop, corn. So you can do things like that with your lessons so that they're paying extra attention, thinking, oh, is she going to do this, or is it that today? So mixing it up.
Very good. And also having different ways. I know, and this uh, kind of pertains to us, this teacher that I saw in her classroom kind of routines and procedures were very, she had worked really hard to get those. She's a second year teacher here. And actually the kids were sitting on the carpet and they followed her back and forth. They were following her, but she had a signal for everything that she did so that the kids knew exactly when to respond in certain ways. So you work on those things, and those are things that are easy for the teachers for them to practice with the kids in the very beginning of the year, so that they know this is our one. It's going to be a snap. This is our one when I do this, or when I point at you, that's going to be your cue to answer a question. Or if it's verbal, again, something, where you say everybody, or this person, or get ready, go, like it says here. But having those things kind of set out beforehand is really good, and it helps also to keep kind of the flow of the class and the kids understand what you're asking them for. I'll say that I was not very good in the beginning when I was teaching about the think time, the pause time. I thought we needed to keep moving but give the class a second to think. So if you ask a question and you're going for a choral response for the whole class, think about those students that are in there that are going to take a little longer than somebody that maybe thought of the answer right away, so that everybody can have a chance to answer, or that everybody can have a chance to write something down, or whatever the case may be with that. Anything to add to that, Miss Edmondson? I know I've seen you do a lot of different things really, really well in your classroom.
I appreciate that. The only other thing I can think of to add is that pause time. Sometimes with my students, I notice they're thinking, especially those ones that might have the accommodation of extended time. Sometimes it just takes them a little bit longer to process the information. So I will say to them, I can tell that you're really thinking about this, and I'm going to give you a little bit more time and come back to you in a minute. And then I just kind of make a mental note, okay, I need to go back to that student so that he or she can have the opportunity to participate.
Yep. So talking about also implementation, and these are things, so I know, like for me, from the administrative level, or if you are like a peer evaluator, you're going in and you're watching another teacher, or anything from that level, it's stuff like this that are kind of like, I don't want to say quick and easy, but they are quick things that you can give them to help them with the progression of their lesson. So planning the questions ahead of time, I know that seems like common sense, but a lot of times, like, teachers just are, sometimes we'll just go through and they just want to ask, whatever question seems to come to them. But going through that and making sure you have specific questions, and even specific questions for specific kids. Like, I know if you're looking at inferencing skills, you want to make sure that you're finding a part of what passage or whatever you're reading where there's something the kids are going to have to make an inference on. Even choosing the book like that, or the passage that you have, is going to be really important. But you might have a group or a kid who needs some work on just the basic character setting, those kind of questions, or you have a kid that really struggles with. I listened to a lot of teachers today talk about CVC and CVDC, and all the terms like that. But knowing that you have questions specifically for those are very important. And again, it helps the flow and the pacing and the structure of the lesson. So making sure that you have all of those things planned out, and that, again, that goes into the planning of your lesson, and it makes it very seamless when you're going in there. And I'll say, for me, a big part of what we have to do is making sure that we let them know, right? Go into providing feedback to them. We have to let them know that they got it right if they do get it right. Like if they say, I know Miss Edmondson already talked about this, but if I say, who's the main character of the story, and they say Bill is. And you're like, that's right, Bill is the main character. So that they're hearing that from you, now they've heard it twice, and that's really good for our students to hear that and to get that corrective feedback right away, or not even corrective, but that we are affirming their response to it. And on the other side of that, if they don't get it right, then we need to make sure that we correct them immediately. Like if they make a mistake, like I was talking about with the word bat, and they say Matt, my response to it would be, no, this word is bat. Say it again. What word is this? Bat. Okay. And then we would come back to it. I know that I've worked with some programs, like especially reading programs, where they might want you to isolate that error because they did get the at the end, right? And say, well, what letter did you see there? And then go through that whole thing. But again, as long as we're providing that immediate corrective feedback, that's the important part. Anything to add to that, Miss Edmondson?
So if they don't get that correct answer, a
Right.
good thing to do would be to I just usually say, let's go back in the story or in the passage and look for some of those key words, highlighting, underlining, and then having that student read the sentence out loud so that they can hear themselves, and then I read it back to them. A lot of times that I have found is very beneficial in their learning, because they're seeing, oh yeah, I do have to go back and find the answer in the text, and here it is. Color coding is also a good way for students to practice their comprehension. So like if a question is asking about the characters, maybe that's color coded in yellow with the question, and then with the answer in the text. Maybe purple's used for the setting. Whatever you decide to do with your group, but sometimes that color coding, just that alone, will help them, so they just don't see so many words in that text and become overwhelmed.
Right. Perfect. And again, when you're kind of moving on here, when you're making decisions, example, if your students are having a lot of errors, to me as a teacher, and I did this several times, again, in the beginning of my career, where I would teach something, thought I did a bang up job. And then the kids would start answering questions, or I'd start them on some guided or independent practice, and there'd be a lot of errors in there. Well, that was a sign to me that I need to go back, because clearly we're not understanding what it was that I taught. In the same kind of way, and I know a lot of this seems like, yeah, this is common sense, but sometimes we teach and they do the individual practice, and then we're trying to move, and we need to make sure that they're mastering those things.
Mhm.
So just make sure that you want to go back and do a quick reteach, and then again bring back whatever that skill is that you're working on, to make sure that you're having that positive practice for them, right? So you don't want to just keep on going if they didn't get something correct. So the last thing here, it talks about note the students with errors. So like if you had a student, if you're going through, and I know I used a program, a reading program, where you had a group of 5 students, and let's say that you were working on a few different skills in there, but one you notice, and I'm making this simple, but an SH, you notice that sound, the student one in particular wasn't getting that. Well, when you had another word come up, and you have these little books, another word come up, that would be the student you'd want to go to for the SH, right? So include those individual questions during the lesson, ask the question, and then call on the student to keep them engaged, right? So you want to make sure that everybody's looking, but then call on that student that made the mistake, okay, to make sure that they understood, because you always want to go back. And again, that positive practice with them is really important. Anything else to add to that part, Miss Edmondson? I'm talking a lot, and you're the one that does it every day.
No, that's fine. And we might get to this in a moment, but having good communication as a resource teacher, having good communication with the general education teacher is essential, because both of us have a huge part in that student's learning. So if we notice something that's working in resource, or if, in general ed, if the teacher notices something that's working in there, it's always good to keep that communication open between the two of you, because I mean, we're all on the same team to boost the students' learning and fill in those gaps. So whenever you are working with the student, I always make a point to say, now, whenever you go back into your classroom, you're going to do the same type of skill that we were just doing in resource, to help you with the reading or the writing or the math. And I know, for instance, right now in math, in second grade, the teachers and I have been working really closely on 3-digit addition and subtraction with regrouping, using chart, like the place value charts, and ways to show our second graders. And we've all been on the same page with it, so that when students from these 2 second grade classes and those 2 second grade classes come, we're all on the same ship together, trying to work it out, and we all are teaching it the same way. And then, like you were saying, Mr. Thomas, there's always going to be some that may be having difficulty. And in resource, we can try different things. So maybe that particular way is not working for a student. So then we have to communicate with the teacher, hey, we need to be trying this instead, because they're really having a hard time with this after giving it plenty of time.
Right. Totally agree on that part. So this is like a one-pager kind of thing here. There's a little QR code there for all the things that we kind of talked about in there, the implementation tips and the resources and stuff. Just if that's something it's a really nice resource to have, to kind of to give to another teacher, or if you're like me and you're an administrator and you go in and you want to give them something that they're able to look at and use. I think that's a really good resource that's there for you. Okay. So affirmation and correction here. So affirming students' correct responses assures students of their progress while learning new material to increase their motivation, and provides one more opportunity for practice. Again, like I was talking about, making sure that you are letting them know when they did get something right. Yes, that's correct. And then corrective feedback informs students of their mistakes and gives them an opportunity for perfect practice. It can be used as a guide to scaffold learning. And I think that we've talked a lot about those two things, again, about affirming and then also giving, corrective feedback. So I think those are really good. Again, let's go to talk about the research. I know that's really important here. Feedback is information provided to a learner about their performance towards meeting a learning goal, and feedback should be delivered positively, goal-directed, and developmentally appropriate. And I think that that's one, even for, like, we haven't really talked about behavior here, but we do have one of our teachers in the building is very good with behavior. And one of those things, as far as feedback, is helping those kids to understand. A lot of the children that she works with either have emotional disabilities, or there are some students with autism in there, and having them understand what her feelings are, right? And providing, and when they are using their words, because she says words have power, and them saying, I don't like that, because these are younger students, or will you play with me, saying things like that. And then her going over there and saying, great job using your words. Great job asking for help. Great job saying please. So even that part of it, her giving them feedback on the behavior side of it, or if they were about to blow up and throw something across the room and they didn't, and they used one of their calming techniques, she'd go over there and say, great job keeping your hands and your feet to yourself. It's that part as well, as far as behavior goes, because I've seen that a lot, again, from one of our other teachers here, and I think that's important.
And modeling those emotions,
Yes.
I think you mentioned that, like, physically showing what it looks like if the teacher is extremely excited or happy, or if the teacher feels sad because the wrong choice was made about the behavior, so that the student not only hears what that feeling is, how that made others feel and how it made the teacher feel, but like physically acting out, like I'm really upset and getting kind of teary-eyed and telling why you're getting upset.
Yep. So then the other side, effective feedback influences student learning, improves achievement, and increases student motivation and engagement in learning, which reduces inappropriate behavior, which is what we're all going for. I think it helps them to feel successful. I know from my own experience and anybody on the screen that's ever worked with students with disabilities, sometimes, and again, coming from middle school where there's been, they've probably struggled every single year, and then getting to me, success is one of those things that they want to feel, and being able to provide them with the feedback and help them to have some success and get the right answer, right? Even if you're kind of feeding it to them, just it really can help their overall self-esteem. So I think that's also a piece in there as well, because it allows them to have some success. So again, when we talk about implementation tips here, you want to provide clear and specific feedback that affirms the response or provides correction. I think we've talked a lot about that. Corrective feedback should be focused on the task and not on the learner. For example, if you read a passage perfectly rather than that, you are a great reader, right? Or you read the passage perfectly, you're a great reader, okay? Feedback should be immediate. Again, we've talked about that over and over again. Make sure we're giving that to them. Corrective feedback should be goal-directed, with the outcome being the student knows the correct response. I think that's a big one, and that's one where Miss Edmondson was talking about working with those teachers in our general ed classrooms. I listened to a presentation a while ago where they had all the principals, a special ed director had all the principals map out how much time each of their kids with disabilities spent in regular ed and in a special education seat, and the majority of the time is in regular education. So our general ed teachers also need to be doing this as well. So working with them to say, hey, make sure that if you hear Johnny make a mistake, that you are giving him a feedback immediately, and that we're correcting it, because we don't want them to practice incorrectly, because we know that it takes a lot for them sometimes to learn a certain skill. The feedback should be developmentally appropriate and aligned with the student's prior knowledge and ability levels. And then after correction, students should be given the opportunity to practice correctly. So again, I think we've said that over and over again. An easy one, and multiplication tables aren't a great example, but if you say if you're asking them what's 5 times 5, because it's a rote memorization thing, and they say 20, you're like, well, 5 times 5 is 25. What is 5 times 5? 25. And then again, you come back to it here in a little bit to give them the opportunity to practice correctly. Anything that I missed on that, Miss Edmondson?
No, I totally agree with that. A lot of the students just have trouble retaining that information, so that immediate recall for multiplication facts or even single digit addition, subtraction, whatever. Eventually they may get it, but I feel like at this level, the students who have IEPs that I support, they just are not yet at that point where they're able, most of them, I'm not going to say all of them, but most of the ones that I see are just not yet at that point where they would be able to do that quickly. So, and granted there are some, but just providing that practice, just getting out okay, so if 5 times 5 is 25, let's show that. Let's put or draw it out or map it out with the chips, so that they can see, oh yeah, 5 times 5 is 25, and this is why. And if you have enough students in your classroom, then you can get them all engaged by showing what the groups or groupings look like for that multiplication or that division. Anything that you can do to get them up, moving around, playing games like four corners, or and I know we talked about earlier having a whiteboard with you so that they can put it down and see it in front of them to know, oh, this is how we got 2 times 10 or whatever. And this is why I need to go to that corner with the answer of 20. Anything you can do to try to get those students up and moving and interacting together. Math is a great time to do that.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's really good, and I'll just make like a connection to this. I coached football and basketball for a few years, and coaches sometimes I think they get bad reps as not great teachers sometimes. However, if you watch them in practice, like with their players, they do a lot of this stuff very well, right? If you are coaching a football team and we're running a play and they see a mistake, they're going to stop everybody, correct it immediately, and then say, what are they going to say? Do it again, right? And then they'll be like, okay, that was good. Now do it again. Now do it again. Now do it again. It's a lot of practice, practice, practice. And if you see a mistake, they point it out. We fix it. We practice again. So they have the skills. I guess I can include myself in that. You have the skills to do it. But that's the kind of thing that we're talking about there. And this just kind of shows you what that looks like. Again, you want to pause when you're after asking a question. Acknowledge the correct response. Again, with like perfect, yes, that's great. Repeat the correct response quickly for additional practice. Like this gives you an example. Yes, the system that pumps blood for the heart to the lungs to get oxygen is the circulatory system. So that's, again, then they get to hear it one more time, even if they got the answer correct. And then this also kind of steps you through here. Model. Stop the student if you have to give them corrective feedback and model the correct response, like we've talked about. Give them an opportunity to practice it again, right? Delay and check for accuracy. So check in with the student or students who made the mistakes to ensure that and provide them with the acknowledgement and the feedback, right? To make sure that they got it. So coming back to it if they were somebody that got it wrong. And then providing scaffolding. If students are struggling, scaffold the skill activity. I'll give you an example. We're working with a younger student with some OT skills, and mom, this was a part of the parents' concern on the IEP. She wants them to be able to open up a water bottle. All right, and he can't do that right now. So as a backwards chaining kind of deal, we're opening it most of the way, and then all he's got to do is just a little twist to get it off of there. And we're like, oh, great job, right? And then you keep adding a little more and a little more. But things like that where you're providing some support to them until they can get that full skill together. Anything that you want to add to that, Miss Edmondson? No.
Yeah, I think you covered it all. I'm just
Okay.
really emphasizing the modeling
Mm-hmm.
and the time for them to practice it. Those two alone are huge. Modeling and practicing.
Right. Perfect. And again, here's another little one pager for corrective and affirmative feedback right there for you to get. We'll share the presentation there, but again, a nice resource for everybody to have. I would like to take credit for all of this, but we can't. So thanks for the references and resources. And then I don't know who wants to take over from here, but Miss Edmondson, if you have anything else to add, I think we about covered it all.
Yeah, I think so. Just don't underestimate yourself. Just always remember to praise the students, specific, immediate, provide practice and modeling over and over until you see that they've mastered the goal on the IEP. That's the goal for everybody. And just communicate. Keep that line of communication open with the general ed teachers and also with the parents so that when they do go home, the parents know, okay, this is what they're working on. These are the strategies that they're using so that the child can see that and feel that bridge from school to home.
Yeah, those
Totally
are some
agree.
great points you both made. I love that reminder, Ms. Edmondson, about the transfer of knowledge, what they're learning, the strategies they're learning, and helping them be successful in the special education environment. Make sure in conveying those so students can use that knowledge outside of your environment in the gen ed and begin to generalize in other ways. And, I appreciate Mr. Thomas, you talking about your personal experiences and how your practice has evolved and changed over time. I think you two were able to clearly show how these practices are closely aligned. Those opportunities respond, providing students additional opportunities to repeat their learning is shown in the research to be successful for students with disabilities, and it gives them opportunities to gain that information that they're lacking faster and more efficiently. So pairing that with that positive and affirmative feedback that's very explicit for what they're trying to learn and helping them have that immediate error correction, so they're not practicing things wrong or things that are easily done. I mean, you guys shared so many strategies of how to do these quickly and easily, involving all students at once and not just one student. So thank you so much for that. On the screen is the QR code that links to all of our one-pagers on evidence-based practices that we've developed and published so far. So this is our second webinar from our evidence-based practice network. We had one last month that focused on progress monitoring, where Sarah Melton from Oconee County shared some information. So check out the video on that one. We will be publishing some more information at the beginning of the year for a January evidence-based practice network. So keep following us on social media. That might be the next slide for us. Oh, our mailing list, definitely a way to connect. If you sign up for this month and go to the link, you will get some presents from us, which is 10 different resources that you could utilize. But if you sign up now, you can get the next one as well, talking about different events that will come up, especially evidence-based practices, network events that are happening in the future. And then the next slide might be our social media. Yes. So Dr. Susan Thomas is our social media expert and is great at sharing what's happening out where we are out and about and what events are coming. So you can go to our YouTube channel and find short video clips from experts about resources, and you're going to be able to find our evidence-based practice recordings on the YouTube channel. And let's see what's next. Oh, our contact information, if you'd like to email us and ask us additional questions, or if you have an idea for an upcoming topic that you'd like to share, or if you know somebody who's doing a great job in their daily practice that you think would be good for us to highlight, reach out to us and share that information. And is that the last one?
I believe that's it.
And
That's the last one.
we had someone that asked to go back to the QR code. If you can slide those back, that's the one for the newsletter.
And this one, or the other one for the newsletter?
They didn't say.
All right.
But maybe if you go to the one for the evidence-based practices, they can get to the one pagers there too. The newsletter.
Yep.
There you go. Thanks.
Yeah. And thanks to Mr. Thomas and Ms. Edmondson for their time today and sharing their expertise with all of us. Does anybody have any final questions before we sign off for the day?
I wanted to know, are y'all going to sign or send the presentation to us so that we can actually go back in case we don't have the phone or QR code to download?
Yes, we will send you the presentation and it'll have the information in there.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us today. We'll get that information out to you. Don't forget to connect with us so you can see what's happening in the new year. We wish you all happy holidays and I hope you have a great restful break and enjoy time doing what you want to be doing. And we will connect with you all in the new year.